until 11:18 p.m. before they called it a day, and they are going to start that session again today in the morning at around 9, as per the communication from the Senate Speaker, that is Amason Jeffa-Kingi. The session will start at 9 a.m. running through late into the night, when the senators will finally take a vote on whether all the 11 charges leveled against the Deputy President will be upheld or will be dropped. So the question is, the simple majority, in as far as these cases are concerned, will see the Deputy President sent packing. And yesterday we saw how, through his lawyers and the motion mover, went through the accusations and the 11 charges leveled against the Deputy President, and it was some kind of a surgical precision and cross-examination that many people did not even envisage. But that is how it is. And so today we are expecting more to happen in the House of Senate. Thereafter, before close of business today, we'll either know whether we have Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua sitting in the office for the next 3 years, or we'll have a new occupant at Harambee House. All right. Marie, it's interesting times in the country right now. Good morning.
A very good morning to you,
Looking
Victor.
good in that. I like that.
Thank you.
The dress. Is that red or maroon?
What do you think?
That's like a setup. That question is a setup.
It's not a setup. Maybe you're colorblind. That's why you're avoiding it.
Red?
But it's red.
Can I see red?
It's not maroon. It's red. Yes, you got it.
Ah, good.
Asante. And you know what, Victor? Just like you've said,
yes.
We've been glued to, I know, our TV sets or our radios, just listening to the proceedings from the Senate. Yesterday, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, D-Day with the Senate began with the hearings, as you've mentioned. And, well, like you said, people didn't expect. The cross-examination was quite tough, I must say, at least in my opinion, that is. And that is what we expect to continue today as the hearings continue. And definitely the Deputy President will be there to defend himself against the accusations, 11 charges for that matter. And yes, by the end of the day, we will know. Mbivu na mbichi wanasema, si ndio? Yeah, so we will be bringing you live proceedings of that, so stay tuned to KBC Channel 1. We'll be able to bring you all that you need to know in as far as this unprecedented, impeachment of the Deputy President in our country is concerned. Definitely, Kibwezi West Member of Parliament, Ekomas Mutuse, was there yesterday to just, lay bare his accusations against the Deputy President, and he was cross-examined, and also the witnesses for the Deputy President will appear today, just to also give out their evidence against these accusations. So all that will be coming up definitely after this particular program, the Good Morning Kenya. But definitely Victor Law will be here with the guests, our analysts, just to take you through what will be happening later on in the day. So a very good morning from wherever you're joining us. My name is Marie Ambo, and I'm ready to take you through what is happening in as far as the news is concerned. And the three-judge bench of the High Court, led by Justice Eric Ogola, has cautioned appointing a new Deputy President prior to the conclusion of a case in which the DP is challenging his removal from office in the event he is impeached by the Senate and would be unconstitutional. The precaution comes amid concerns raised by the petitioners of a plot to nominate a new DP by the end of the week should Rigathi Gachagua be impeached. Our reporter Abdiaziz Hashim has details of the legal fight by the DP at the courts.
In another attempt to stop the impeachment motion against him,
this is the ruling in the consolidated applications.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, being represented by his lawyers, suffered yet another blow Wednesday morning, minutes to the start of the impeachment motion at the Senate.
At the moment, we are being called upon to anticipate the outcome of a process yet to be completed. The application at this stage is premature and anticipatory.
A three-judge bench of the High Court declined to stop the ongoing Senate proceedings, which are set to conclude on Thursday.
Should the petitioner not succeed, the petitioner still have an opportunity to approach the court after the process. The applications are not without a remedy.
Additionally, the bench was quick to caution against any plans to swear in a replacement of the DP should he be impeached pending the completion of his case at the courts.
On the issue that has been raised that as soon as the Senate impeaches the DP, if at all that happens, that the DP immediately ceases holding office and he cannot reclaim office, we take the view that every office holder can only assume office legally and constitutionally. The assumption of office cannot oust the court's jurisdiction.
The caution coming amid fears by the DP's team of plans to have a new deputy named and approved before the conclusion of this case.
The court has unfettered jurisdiction to check on the constitution of the process at whatever stage.
On Tuesday, Justice Chacha Mwita had also rejected a request by Gachagwa's legal team, led by senior counsel Paul Mwite and lawyer Tom Masharia, for a conservatory orders to suspend the Senate trial. They argue that the impeachment was politically motivated and unconstitutional, citing lack of public participation. A total of 26 petitions have been filed challenging Gachagwa's impeachment. The deputy president faces 11 charges, and the Senate trial is ongoing, with the court set to mention the matter on October 18th for further direction on the hearing of the 6 consolidated petitions.
It is our view that this is not one such case where intervention is automatic. The issues raised by the parties will require to be interrogated. We therefore find that the enhancement of the constitutional principle of separation of powers will be best served by declining the application at this point.
Thank you, Abdiaziz Hashim, for that report. A section of the clergy drawn from the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, and the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims are now calling on the Senate to ensure justice and fairness in debating the DP's ouster motion. The men of the cloth are also urging Kenyans to remain peaceful as Parliament executes its mandate. Our reporter Frederick Parsayo brings us more details.
Order number 1, communication from the chair.
The Senate resolved to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, AGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, in plenary.
As the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua appeared Wednesday before Senate to defend himself against impeachment, a section of religious leaders to voice their concerns.
It is our heartfelt wish that the members of Parliament exercise similar energy and resources on the matters that are priority to the lives of the people of Kenya as they have in debating the impeachment.
The leaders from the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, and the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims argue that justice and fairness should be employed in the entire process.
We call upon the Senate to ensure justice is done and seen to be done, recognizing that what they undertake will set a precedence for the nation.
We remind you that if this nation perishes, the blood of Kenyans will be on your hands.
They at the same time added their voice to the signing of a multi-billion shilling deal between the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company Limited, KETRACO, and Adani Energy Solutions Limited that will see the Indian-based company develop, finance and operate transmission lines nationwide.
Cancel all the contracts that have been issued to Adani-related companies that have been or are seeking to be entrenched in the health sector. Electricity transmission and management of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
Well, we move on, but before that, so what does the Deputy President's options are? What are his options? So maybe we'll get to know as Victor talks to our analysts, but I guess probably either he resigns or he can actually seek redress from the courts. But we'll be getting to know more in as far as his options are concerned. Moving on, a section of women from various parts of the country are fronting Kirinyaga Governor, that is Anne Waiguru, as suitable successor for embattled Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua if the Senate upholds his impeachment this Thursday, that is today. The women drawn from Kiambu, Kakamega and Taita Taveta counties claim Waiguru's track record in governance is proof of her readiness to lead at the national level, that is.
As the impeachment trial against embattled Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua continues at the Senate, a section of women from select parts of the country are fronting Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru for the position of Deputy President if the Senate impeaches DP Gachagua. The women drawn from Kakamega, Kiambu and Taita Taveta claim the Kirinyaga Governor is the ideal candidate to step into the role of Deputy President if Gachagua is ousted.
As the women of Kenya, we are reminding you of your promise to support gender equality. We urge that should the position of Deputy President become vacant, please honor your promise to the women of Kenya and appoint a woman.
Sisi tunaomba rais, kilio chetu wa mama. Tunaomba agenda ambaye ni mwanamke.
Citing Waiguru's extensive leadership experience and her successful tenure as chair of Council of Governors, the women stressed the need for a woman to ascend to the position of second in command.
Ashawahi kuwa governor, ashawahi kuwa CS, sahi hata ni governor for second term, na tunamwamini na tunajua kazi yake yenye anafanya. Hata Kirinyaga vile ametengeneza mahospitali tunaona. Tunataka hii kiti ibaki Mount Kenya.
For now, seriously talking, hatujui ni nini amefanya, hatujui hata ni nini imeendelea. Lakini kama kutaenda hivyo Gachagua aondolewe kwa Mount Kenya, naomba saa hii tuchaguliwe Anne Mombi Waiguru.
The sentiment were echoed in Malava constituency, where Linet Wachuli led a group of women expressing unwavering confidence in Waiguru's abilities.
Ako na experience ya kutosha, amefanya kazi ya kutosha, amelinda wa governors for 2 terms, amekuwa governor, mbona asipewe hicho kiti?
President tutetee. Hapa tuko tumefinyika, lakini vile tumesikia mama tunamuunga mkono.
Mama kama amesaa watoto wake kwa nyumba, huwa hapa kuwa anakaa tu gitu the same. Hatofautisha tu huyu anatakana apate kikupa na huyu kidogo.
Na tunamuunga mkono awe anatuongoza sisi wa mama, tunateseka.
In Mombasa, a section of women from Sauti ya Wanawake are fronting the Kirinyaga governor for the second in command.
Governor Waiguru is able, qualified and experienced, having served as CS devolution.
Time yetu saizi ile nafasi imetokea ya kupata vice president mwanamke, tunaomba Waiguru apewe nafasi kama mama. Ndio sisi wa mama kama tunapigania haki zetu na watoto wetu katika huku kijijini, tupate mama wetu kule juu ambao tutupatia support.
Well, as those women front, Anne Waiguru to be the successor of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, definitely it's not time. We'll be able to know that by the end of the day, whether he stands impeached or not. But even with that happening, what options does the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua have for that matter? So let's get more with our reporter.
The historic debate in the National Assembly last week was intense.
When the Deputy President is at the forefront demeaning women in leadership.
Kenyans have said that Kitwisen on particular stage, kufa makanga, kufa dereva, kufa mechanic, because Kenyans are more serious issues.
I urge members to find favor with my motion from clause 1 to clause 11, and as you vote to impeach Mr. Rigathi Gachagua.
Rigathi Gachagua has learned his job from his boss, that public officers must be called to order when they fell short of expectation. And I never saw anybody bring William Ruto here for impeachment, for criticizing the IG or the DCI.
From the onset, the mood of the House was telling of the fate that was likely to befall the DP, with a majority of legislators faulting his leadership. And when the motion was voted for,
the ayes, 281.
Come forward.
A verdict that set the ball rolling, leaving little legal room for reconciliation or dialogue.
Tuache malumbano yao bungeni na katika Senate na hata katika kotini, lakini sisi tufanye kazi yetu kwa pamoja ya biashara.
And with the horse having left the barn, on Wednesday the DP will face the Herculean task of pleading his case before the senators.
and the Senate shall then investigate the matter in plenary on Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th of October 2024. The Senate is accordingly guided.
August House passed a blanket judgment into him. But when you go to the Senate, it's going to be one item after the other. But then when you look at the 3 counts from where he is being charged and you try to battle each of these, the 11 counts of accusations against him, you find that what happened in the August House is always going to happen in the Senate House, and majority of those charges are going to pass through.
To survive politically, he will need to convince at least 23 of the 67 senators to vote against his removal.
In accord with Article 8 of the agreement, power would be allocated the position of the Speaker of the Senate. He negotiated it for himself.
Rigathi is on record stating that he will not throw in the towel.
There was a lot of speculation that Rigathi Gachagua wants to resign.
Legal minds argue that Gachagua and his battery of lawyers can premise their case on the happenings of the floor of the House that led to 282 MPs voting in favour of his ouster.
Issues like public participation and whether he was given an adequate opportunity to prosecute his case. There were issues about some of the videos being shown to him for the first time on the floor of the National Assembly. And then obviously public participation. The public seemed to be against the motion, but the results given by the National Assembly seemed to indicate that the public was overwhelmingly in support. The kind of violence that attended some of those sessions, including at Bomas, he has the chance to go to court. For example, the question whether they should have listened to both the mover and Gachagua first, and then sought public opinion, having heard both sides to the dispute, instead of presenting the public with one side of the story. And there's always the danger of a single side of the story. Those are live disputes before the court.
As the dust settles, the gravity of the political acts before him cannot be ignored.
Irrespective of the statements that we want to put forth in terms of maturity, in terms of the kind of persons we have there, we're in one political field, the Kenyan political field. How politics played in the August House. If we extrapolate that to the Senate House, a majority of 75% voting against him, if that is extrapolated to the Senate House, then we would see a difference. If we borrow what happened to her and the way things have gone, there could be a lifeline. There could probably not be a lifeline, but as soon as the Senate decides, then we have a different playing field that would require another level of intervention, which I don't think would give him a lifeline. From where I'm seated, I think if Senate passes that he has to go, then we're going to our history that we have impeached a deputy president for the first time in the last many years that we have been an independent country.
His political career hangs in the balance, and the option for a clean exit are rapidly diminishing with resignation off the table.
On nonsensical allegations, simply because a decision has been made that Rigathi Gachagua is no longer useful to this administration. He is a spent cartridge. His work was to help fight Uhuru Kenyatta and get President William Ruto to power, and thereafter he is of no use, so he should be dispensed with.
So if impeached by the Senate, what next for the DP?
Okay, so he has the option of going to court. The matter is purely political, with the court having no jurisdiction. But if you look at Article 165 3D, it says that anything done under the Constitution belongs to the jurisdiction of the court. Impeachment is one of the things done under Article 145 and 150 of the Constitution. So he has a right to go to court.
If the DP had opted to resign, he would have been entitled to his benefits.
But if that impeachment goes through and we see the current deputy president becoming a jobless person in this country in terms of political office holding, then the democracy of this country is advancing.
And as the Senate prepares to deal with the matter this week, it is not lost that already there is talk of who shall succeed him as the deputy president if he is ousted by the Senate in a process outlined in Article 149 of the Constitution. It is now a game of wait and see if the Senate will uphold his impeachment and seal his political fate, or if he will survive and stay in office.
He must put that in consideration when he's electing the next person. If this impeachment goes through, who is going to deputize him? He must think, who is this person that when I bring on board is going to act as a neutral factor and a unifying factor to bolster my position as the president of this Republic of Kenya? And he has a huge choice. He has so many persons that he can bring there. He needs also to be forward-looking.
Thank you, Abdiaziz Hashim, for that report. He's just run down some of the options that the Deputy President has, even as we await what will happen in the Senate today. He's also given you there some of the candidates who are being fronted, for the Deputy President position, just in case he is impeached. And reportedly, there might be a special sitting of Parliament tomorrow, but we'll be getting to inform you more during the day. So President William Ruto has urged local banks to lower, their interest rates and make loans more accessible to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises to stimulate economic growth. President Ruto is concerned that despite the Central Bank of Kenya lowering the benchmark lending rate to 12%, commercial banks are charging as high as 20% interest on loans.
President William Ruto addressed the Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises exhibition sponsored by the Kenya Bankers Association, where he underscored the need for banks to reduce interest rates on loans. He said reduction of lending rates is essential to foster a more conducive environment for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises.
Some of the people in the Hustler Fund, about 2 million of them, I think next month we will be announcing their graduation now to the MSME sector. And it demonstrates the possibilities that exist. And it also gives you an indication. Hustler Fund is retailing at 8%. Many banks are today at 17, 18, 20, 20-something percent.
He said micro, small and medium-sized enterprises employ between 80 to 90% of Kenyans and contribute to a third of the gross domestic product, hence the need to protect and support the sector.
I commend the banking industry's pledge to double lending to MSMEs by providing 150 billion in new loans annually beginning next year. Accordingly, the government will support this bold and innovative move through policy and institutional banking, including measures to guarantee the prompt payment of all pending bills, which will commence once the ongoing verification process is completed.
President Ruto noted that Kenya imports goods that can be manufactured locally, thus stifling job creation and draining much needed foreign exchange. He therefore wants banks to increase credit extended to the manufacturing sector,
so that we can provide a better working environment, a better investment climate, and an enabling business ecosystem to support our manufacturing, trade, and investment. I want to encourage industry to work with the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry so that we can together again fashion a new space for business to thrive.
President Ruto lauded banks for being among the biggest taxpayers after contributing 190 billion shillings to the exchequer in 2023.
Thank you, Irene Muchuma, for that report. And it's all systems go for this year's Mashujaa Day celebrations at the Kwale Stadium in Kwale County. Speaking while inspecting the grounds for celebrations, Interior Principal Secretary Raymond Omolo said the event will focus on affordable housing a key initiative of the Kenya Kwanza government. Omolo, who was accompanied by Area Governor Fatuma Achani, says various players will showcase progress made in implementation of affordable housing and other national programs. Security has been beefed up ahead of the event, with Kenyans being urged to show up in large numbers to grace the celebrations. The stadium has a capacity of 10,000 people. This will be the first time Kwale County hosts a national event of this scale.
And today, if you look around, it is completely finished and it is ready. We have just also undertaken the dress rehearsal by the Kenya Defence Forces, presided over by the CDF, and everything is in place for these celebrations. This week, as part of the run-up to the celebrations on Sunday, the theme for the celebrations, which is on affordable housing, we've been having deliberations with regards to what the national government is doing on affordable housing at Diani in Ukunda.
Kwa muda mfupi huu ambao tumeandalia sherehe hizi, tumeona benefits ambazo tumepata kama Wakwale. Uwanja huu umekamilika kwa muda mfupi kwa support ambayo tumepata kutoka serikali ya kitaifa. Pia kuna mabarabara mingi ambayo yameendelea kukamilika kwa muda mfupi, na vile vile pia biashara zimeweza kunawiri.
A look at the counties now, where a series of violent robberies targeting traders in Homa Bay town has sparked widespread fear among the local business community. The most recent incident, which occurred a few days ago, have intensified calls for enhanced security measures to curb the rising wave of crime. Details in our continuous roundup.
In the first attack, Quinta Atieno, a businesswoman in Homa Bay town, was brutally assaulted by suspected thieves armed with crude weapon. She was left unconscious and 300,000 shillings was stolen from her.
Mtu mmoja akapita hivi na chuma, alibeba chuma ingine kwa mkono, akachapa pikipiki, tukaanguka chini. Hiyo vile tumeanguka tu, hiyo dakika kidogo nikasikia kama kitu imechapa kichwa yangu.
In Tana River County, a section of community leaders in Galole constituency have initiated strategies to encourage collaboration between farmers and pastoralists as signs of drought become evident in the area.
Naweza tokea pengine mfugaji aje na mifugo na mwenyewe yuko na amelima, yuko mahali amelima, alafu pengine mfugaji aingie bila ruhusa. Hiyo inaweza leta matatizo.
Mama tuje pamoja kama jamii na mashirika yote mawili, machief na jamii zote mbili ya Orma na Wapokomo, angalau tufanye kinga.
At the coastal region, head teachers in Changamwe sub-county, Mombasa County, have been asked to ensure teachers complete the school syllabus in good time to ensure improved grades while upholding best teaching practices.
Most of our students here are coming from poor background. The only way we can assist them is by making sure we avail quality education so that they can become the best in society, because the only thing that can change their life or lives is just education.
Human rights organization under the auspices of Jumuiya ya Mashariki ya Pwani and the Pwani Social Justice Network have lauded media houses and journalists for their steadfast commitment in covering the recent Gen Z protests despite facing intimidation both physically on the ground and the attempts to stifle media freedom through restrictive measures.
Media has stood firm in demanding for justice. The media has shown that they're the first and the last line of defense for Kenyans. Even when wametishiwa, even when wameambiwa watafungiwa, even when they have been shot, they have been tortured, they have been harassed, media ya Kenya imeonyesha kwamba they will never abandon the truth.
Elsewhere, health experts in Homa Bay County are calling for the widespread introduction of hand-washing facilities across schools, markets, beaches and health centers in a bid to intensify hygiene in public spaces.
Hand-washing can be practiced in those institutions because institutional areas are where the mass or everybody works from. And therefore we need a number of hand washing facilities. We need people who can teach our people and train them so that hygiene and hand washing are combined together.
Meanwhile, Busia Governor Dr. Paul Otuoma has fired a warning shot to underperforming county executive committee members that are alleged to have rendered poor services to Busia County locals.
Remember, you're being appointed by people who have been given the mandate by the people of Busia. We will not allow you to destroy our future just because you want to be a passenger in the team.
Finally, Director of National Council of Disabilities in Trans Nzoia, Bernard Masioge, has requested the county government to exempt people living with disability from paying taxes.
Well, and that report by Kasi Chanamasha brings us to our first break of the bulletin. I'll be back with business and sports.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Nadhani umefika muda wa kurudi kwa wazazi wangu na mwanangu Maya. Hapa haya ni maji ya shingo na nimeshindwa kabisa kuyaogelea.
Mimi naweza chapwa na mwanamke mimi huyo basi.
Hata wewe mtu mzima haujui kuchunga mzigo wako. Shauri yako.
There are no victims. We only have clients or clientele. As soon as she lands here safely, she'll be the next client.
Sasa, what does Trish have to do with this?
Do you still have feelings for this girl, don't you? Trust me, not at all.
Knowing is one thing. Would you tell us?
Aliniambia ataniletea mapasta. The following day akakuja na mganga.
Wewe msichana wewe. Unisikize na unisikize kwa makini.
This sounds like one of your feuds with her.
You wish. She has moved on. Prepare to move on, 20.
Welcome back. We look at business now, where the National Treasury is seeking public input on introducing certain provisions and taxes from the withdrawn Finance Bill 2024, aiming to boost revenue. While addressing the media after 50 days in office, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi highlighted that some proposals related to pensions, tax amnesty and VAT claims need to be reconsidered as they address key tax administration issues. Warimo Njenga with more.
The Cabinet Secretary emphasized the need for realistic budgeting, announcing plans to enhance and expand tax collection efforts in various areas, including VAT, rental income, personal income, and custom duties.
Don't want us to militarize tax collection.
We must do it in a way that people understand that paying taxes is a responsibility.
Additionally, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Badi says his ministry is seeking public feedback on the reintroduction of certain provisions from the Withdrawn Finance Bill 2024 to enhance collections.
We are processing the opinion of Kenyans, and we will certainly ask our parliament to look at some of those revenue-raising measures. Some of them are actually not even, let me not even call them revenue-raising measures. These are tax administration issues. Some of them are not even raising revenue. Some of them are giving out even the money, like the reform on pension, so that those who have retired should get their pension without paying taxes on pension. So that is one of the proposals. The other one is on tax amnesty.
He says reforms are needed for the iTax system to improve efficiency in revenue collection, which, in addition to automation of public procurement system, will address concerns on ghost projects as well as strengthen implementation of donor-funded projects.
In consultation with the President, we have agreed on a number of reforms at the Kenya Revenue Authority, including the system reforms, that is, having a system that can help us collect taxes more efficiently and economically. Accrual accounting system, for those who don't understand, is where now all the government liabilities will be captured in our balance sheet, in our financial statements.
Amid this, Badi says the government is finalizing on 195 billion shillings commercial loan from the United Arab Emirates for funding this year's budget.
It is commercial loan. In our budget, we have a provision of 168 billion in the 2024-25 budget, 168 billion. So we thought if we take this money, which will be more than what is in the budget by 27 billion, we could reduce domestic borrowing with that.
Moving on, lack of a regulatory and legal framework, as well as divergent opinion on what is Sharia compliant, are among challenges prohibiting growth of Islamic financial institutions. As such, Islamic banking experts are calling for the review of the current regulatory framework and accommodate Islamic finance concepts in the regulations and unlock barriers hindering the uptake of Sharia products in the country.
Significant differences exist between Islamic banking and conventional banking, which experts want demystified to catalyze uptake of Sharia finance-compliant products among Muslims and non-Muslims.
Because we have to continue investing. We have to invest a lot in information. We have to ensure that people have the right knowledge. They are well informed for them to be involved in this. Because there is no doubt in my mind, this is going to be a catalyst, and it is already actually a catalyst to the economic growth of this country.
Capital Markets Authority Chief Executive Wycliffe Shamir has termed the launch of the Q&A Islamic Finance Book as key in bridging the knowledge gaps that have hindered the growth of the niche market.
The housing fund is taxing every single one of us here 1.5%, including me. But there is no Islamic component to that fund until today.
We are discussing from a point of their interests we need to take off or even take care of when it comes to how we look at the Islamic finance.
CMA further revealed ongoing engagements with the Central Bank of Kenya on the possibility of reviewing the current regulatory framework and accommodate Islamic banks in the banking regulations.
And when it comes to Sharia governance framework, what is required is to have competent, independent, and knowledgeable Sharia scholars who are able to guide, the institutions to get it right in terms of Sharia compliance.
On the other hand, Islamic scholars have urged Sharia-compliant institutions to shore up capacity in Islamic law finance concepts for efficiency. Islamic banking forms a small portion of all banking transactions in Kenya, despite the concept having been introduced in 2008.
Regina Manyara reporting there. Now, artificial intelligence remains one of the most innovative technological breakthroughs in the recent past. Though relatively new, AI is first gaining traction as the go-to technology for big corporations. However, for small and medium enterprises, the story is different with the slow uptake of the technology. Now, business experts opine that the adoption of artificial intelligence into business processes can boost the productivity of small businesses and startups, with affordable solutions now being rolled out for MSMEs. Betty Kiptum tells us more from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates.
A report by McKinsey highlighting the difference between MSME productivity and that of large companies indicates that in Kenya, MSMEs are just 6% as productive as large companies, translating to a 94% productivity gap. Part of the problem is low technology uptake due to high capital outlays. The report released early this year says there is a correlation between low productivity and poor returns. Software solutions firm Tally has partnered with the Kenyan government to help small businesses comply with electronic tax systems.
As a business owner, personally, as an individual, everything that is coming out in AI, I would just encourage people to be much more curious about trying things out, trying to see what works for them. We serve the kind of businesses that can't afford to spend too much. We have to make solutions extremely cost effective for them and yet not compromise on the kind of power we give them.
In the world of business, there is consensus that the adoption of emerging technology can improve efficiency and boost the bottom line. With the advent of AI solutions, professionals in emerging markets have been urged to equip themselves with AI skills to remain relevant in the current and future job markets.
There's a paranoia that AI is going to take over somebody's job. And the second you have that paranoia and you're unwilling to try something new, the only thing that's going to happen is that the world will move forward and you'll be left behind. So whether it's Tally, whether it's any other kind of AI, I think the people who are willing to try and who are more open to also letting their skill sets evolve, they're the ones who can not only capitalize on using AI really well, but also figure out what talent will mean for them.
Humanity will always prevail, but the only big challenge that we have is that the disruption is very huge now with AI. So understanding where the skills needed are and equipping ourselves with those skills and creativity and analytical thinking and strategy are all things that are pretty much in demand.
Small and medium enterprises support economies across emerging markets, but these small businesses struggle to get technology incorporated into their business processes because of the high capital costs required. AI solutions that are supporting small businesses are being rolled out into the market to ensure that the productivity of these small businesses is increased. Reporting from Dubai, my name is Betty Kiptum.
Thank you, Betty Kiptum. Kenya's exports to the East African community have increased from 226.4 billion shillings in 2022 to 305.8 billion shillings, underlining the import role played by the trading bloc. This emerged during ministerial performance validation exercise by Deputy Chief of Staff in the Executive Office of the President for Performance and Delivery Management, that is Eliud Owalo, at the Ministry of East African Community, Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development.
Ministerial performance validation exercise by Deputy Chief of Staff in the Executive Office of the President for Performance and Delivery Management, Eliud Owalo, has been conducting ministerial performance validation exercises. The latest is the Ministry of East African Community, Arid and Semi-Arid Lands and Regional Development, where the important role of the East African community market was highlighted.
We have increased in the value of Kenyan exports. Kenya's export to the East Africa grew from 226.4 billion in 2022 to 305.8 billion shillings in 2023. This is attributed to the elimination of non-tariff barriers, which enabled a number of Kenyan products to access the EAC market.
The purpose of the exercise is to hold various ministries accountable and keep track of their progress, bottlenecks and achievements as they work to serve the people of Kenya.
We now need to get into
a performance contracting framework with the ministry to enable the ministry commit itself beforehand to certain deliverables, both quantitatively and qualitatively, at the end of the activity period, that is as at 30th June 2025.
The ministerial meetings are part of his mandate in overseeing performance contracting, as well as overseeing the implementation of the government's projects.
Let's look at sports, where the national boxing team Hit Squad left the country yesterday to take part in the Africa Boxing Championship that is currently underway in Kinshasa, DRC. The Kenyan contingent comprises of 12 boxers, 9 men, 3 women, and 3 officials. Some of the boxers included in the men's squad are Silas Onyango, minimum weight, Abednego Chalo, flyweight, Shafi Bakari, featherweight, Alois Vincent, light welter, and Captain Boniface Mugunde, light middleweight. The women include Faith Nafuna, flyweight, Amina Matha, bantamweight, and Elizabeth Adiego, light heavyweight. Kenya finished 17th overall with 7 bronze medals in the 2023 edition held in Yaoundé, Cameroon, as Morocco bagged the overall title. While Senegal, DR Congo, Angola, and Egypt are the latest team to qualify for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, joining host Morocco, Algeria, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso, who already booked their place in the African Peace. Meanwhile, Sudan beat Ghana 2-0 in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers after Ahmed Al-Tash and Mohamed Abdelrahman both scored for the Falcons of Jeddah, placing them second in Group F with 7 points. Group G leaders, Ivory Coast, lost 1-0 to Sierra Leone after a late goal winner by Amadou Bakayoko. In other matches, Congo defeated Tanzania 2-0 in Group H, and Malawi lost 1-0 to Senegal in Group L. The Football Kenya Federation has taken a significant step towards empowering women in football by facilitating an all-female CAF C coaching course at the Kenya Institute of Special Education. Now, the course, which kicked off on Monday, brings together 30 female coaches from across the country. The initiative is part of the broader Football Kenya Federation strategy aimed at increasing the number of female coaches in Kenya and closing the gender gap in football coaching. The course is held by 2 highly accomplished CAF instructors, Coach Jacqueline Juma, who recently made history as the first female head coach in the FKF Premier League with Talanta FC, and Beldine Odemba, who was the first female to coach a national team, Harambee Starlets, before she took over the Kenya Police Bullets to guide them to an unbeaten season where they clinched their maiden FKF Women's Premier League title.
The class is only for ladies is something that we have been advocating, but we had not gotten enough ladies who had qualified from D to do the C class.
It is the first time in history that we are having women having their own space to develop themselves at an individual level and also network and share challenges.
Well, that ends the sports news for this moment. But remember, today is the big day. The impeachment of the deputy president at the Senate goes on today. And so we want to look at some of the procedures that are needed to impeach the deputy president. My colleague Edward Kabasa did compile these reports, and let's have a look at it.
Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is a man under siege.
lawmakers are toying with the idea of hounding him out of office. Well, impeaching a deputy president in Kenya is a process guided by the Constitution of Kenya, primarily under Article 150. Let's walk through how it works. First, a member of the National Assembly must initiate the process by proposing a motion for impeachment. The grounds for this motion must be clearly stated and must fall under one of three categories: gross violation of the Constitution or any other law, the commission of a crime under national or international law, or gross misconduct. This is specified under Article 150, subsection 1A and B. Once the motion is presented, it must be supported by at least 1/3 of all members of the National Assembly. Given that there are 349 members in total, this means that at least 117 members must support the motion for it to proceed. If this threshold is met, the motion is then tabled for debate. After the debate, the National Assembly must vote on the resolution. Here, the Constitution requires a much higher threshold. At least 2/3 of all members of the National Assembly must approve the impeachment. In numbers, that means 233 members out of 349 must vote in favor of the motion for it to move forward to the Senate.
Honorable Senators, I wish to welcome you to this special sitting of the Senate.
Once it reaches the Senate, the process enters a different phase. Article 145, subsection 4, allows the Senate to form a special committee to investigate the allegations. This committee, if formed, conducts an inquiry and reports its findings back to the entire Senate.
This motion, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, the Senate debates the matter. For the Deputy President to be removed from office, at least 2/3 of all senators must support the impeachment. With 67 senators, this means that at least 45 must vote in favor of the charges. If the Senate votes to uphold the charges, then the Deputy President is removed from office immediately, as stipulated under Article 150, subsection 2. Thus, the process is quite rigorous, requiring high levels of parliamentary support at each stage to ensure that the decision to remove a deputy president is made thoughtfully and with significant backing.
Well, that story by Edward Kabasa brings us to the end of the news this morning. Thank you so much, as always, for keeping us company. But remember, today is the big day. The Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua impeachment motion going on at the Senate. And that is what is going to be forming the basis of the discussions this morning with Victor Olo, who is already in studio together with our guest. Victor, over to you.
Of course, the D-Day, and of course, each and every person at some point will go before trial. And this one belongs to the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who is facing the Senate today on this final day of his impeachment trial, of which we expect him to take to the stand this morning as per the Constitution, as per the request and the communication that was given by the Senate Speaker, that is Amason Jeffa Kingi. He will be taking it to the stand. Thereafter, more questions and cross-examinations will also come from his defense team as well as the motion mover. And it's going to be an interesting day. By close of business today, we'll know if we have a Deputy President impeached or he'll be sent home packing. What are some of the options do we have, or for lack of it, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has in store for him? Remember, he's gone to court not once, not twice, but all that. The court said, well, they have a jurisdiction to rule, but they did not want to interfere in the legislative process, and therefore they gave the Senate and the National Assembly to continue the process to its finality. Thereafter, he was given that latitude either to go back to the courts, should he not get that judgment that he wants, and the judges will also take it over from there. So it's going to be a heavy day in as far as this is concerned. Yesterday, the Senate sat until around 11:30 before they took a break, and they're going to resume this morning at 9 a.m. Be sure that we are going to give you that live broadcast from the Senate. Okay. My guest already in studio, and I want us to go through this, and it's going to be an interesting one. One of the questions that I'll be asking my guest will be, what about you as Wanjiku, you as a voter? What are you learning out of this process? Have you been given time to exercise your constitutional duty? Talk of public participation. What do you really understand about public participation? Have you ever been involved in one or in any? How was it? Constitutionally, we are here as a nation. 2010 Constitution, Javas will say that it's one of the most progressive constitutions. Javas, good morning.
Good morning, Victor. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm happy to be here.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Javas Bigambo is a governance and policy expert. He's not new to Jerusalem. And yes, we'll get to know more and get to discuss more. Member of Parliament representing the great people of Lugari is also here. Nabii Nabwera, Honorable Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Asante.
You've been so quiet.
Yes, sometimes you have to take a step back.
Right.
To look at what's happening as you re-strategize. But I want to assure you, Victor, I'm happy back home. You know, KBC for me is home.
Yes. Karibu sana. And it's always good to be back home. Okay, so let me take you through the front page of the local dailies, gentlemen. I'm still expecting Paul Mugambi, who is an advocate of the High Court, joining us shortly in studio. We'll have to give it. A majority of people slept late. Javas said that he slept at 4 a.m. and he was already here. What were you doing the whole night? Awake?
Well, of course, as a practicing Christian,
yes,
we are taught in the pages of Scripture that it's good to always prayerful without ceasing, and keeping a watchful eye. And Nabi, the man whose name translated into English means prophet, will agree with me.
Yes.
And so I think appreciating the concerns of the issues that are germane to the country today, it is a very wrong time to be caught asleep, because the rug will be easily pulled from beneath your feet, and that will leave you with lots of surprises in your find.
I hope you're not wicked, as far as sleep is concerned. Okay. How about you take a look at the front page of the local dailies? Let me start with the Star newspaper. Inside plan to swiftly replace DP Gachagua. That is what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Inside plan to swiftly replace DP Gachagua. That is what's making it on the splash of the Star newspaper. And now, rushed process a tactic to avoid any court intervention as Rigathi seeks to stop the move. And now the state machinery heavily mobilized for immediate replacement. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. And word has it that there'll be a special sitting tomorrow, that's on Friday, again to quote-unquote take a look at some urgent matters. All right. What are some of those urgent matters? Mheshimiwa Nabii, have you gotten any communication from the House?
There's a Gazette notice to that effect.
All right.
In fact, one of the urgent issues concerns me. The mediated sugar bill will be coming before the committee of the whole House today and tomorrow.
What about the mediated sugar bill? Maybe if you don't mind.
Yes, you know, the sugar bill emanated from the National Assembly, which was sponsored by Honorable Wangwe, and I was an interested party in that. It went to Senate, and then Senate made quite a bit of amendments. So, as the Constitution provides, when you have a bill that goes to both houses and the versions don't agree, then we form a committee of equal number of members of the House. We were 7-7, Senate was 7, we were also 7 in National Assembly. We were able to agree on the version on Tuesday. We looked at the 7 articles that we had different views. So we narrowed down the gap. So after agreeing on that, the standing orders provides that each house presents the now new version to the committee of the whole House. And with that kind of bill, there are only two options. You either agree it as is or you throw it away. So we have a task to persuade our colleagues that this is the best version. Just the way the 7 members who are with us from Senate will also be persuading their colleagues that, okay, we had said this, but we have agreed on this, so let's take it forward. And it's a very progressive bill.
I'm interested to get the content of the original version.
Yes, probably the most important things about this sugar bill is that we are going back to where we were before AFA. Okay, we are creating a legal framework for sugar economy in the country. So we are creating the bill creates a sugar board and assigns various roles to farmers, to all the stakeholders. We are now recreating back the Kenya Sugar Research Institute. We are going back to having a fund, a sugar development fund, and therefore there will be a sugar development levy. Okay?
Yeah.
And that has a lot of advantages to the farmer. One, we are empowering the farmer. Number two, we are providing for a resource base for the farmer and even the miller, where they can get money at what I call cheap cost. And then secondly, which had been affected by AFA, is the question of research. You can remember before we went the AFA way, we were just at the tail end of developing a variety that will mature in between 11 and 15 months. We are still at 19 because we didn't fund the Kenya Sugar Research Institute. So we are going back there and say, look, India is doing now cane at 9 months. Why are we doing 24? Why are we doing 19? And the most important, the thing that had created different versions, the areas of disagreement were basically in the area of whether imported sugar, and you know that's the cause of our problems, should attract a higher levy so that we make it completely impossible to bring in sugar through Somalia, through Sudan and all that.
I want to take a break. I'll come back to that later because it seemed to be one of those interesting bills as an urgent one to be debated today and tomorrow. That is tomorrow. All right, so let's take a break. That was just, but I've also just warming up for the discussion coming up shortly. Stay with us.
Ambaye ataongeza katika jambo letu hili, yani Uislamu, kisichokuwa ndani ya Uislamu, basi atakuwa ni mwenye kurejeshewa.
Tuangalieni mambo ambayo kwamba yatasaidia katika umma, si kutenganisha umma, bali umma tuulete sehemu moja.
Siku alosawa amini kukangara ulimwenguni.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
You can sing like this. Atoti, sonoka, sonoka. Atoti, sonoka, sonoka.
Ati kumwamini.
Yaani waamini mwanaume. Ate sasa.
Kama hii song inaiba kwa mwendwa wakwa Mariro. Mariro, yani that rap song.
Kinyanjui, is that a rap song?
What I mean is punguza umama. Wacha wasichana tuongee.
You are the one from America. Yeah, I've been stolen from Africa. And then they go to America. Oh, yo, yo.
There are no victims. We only have clients or clientele. As soon as she lands here safely, she'll be the next client.
Sasa, what does Trish have to do with this?
So you still have feelings for this girl, don't you?
Trust me, not at all.
Wangekuwa wanafanya kazi pamoja, will know.
Knowing is one thing. Would you tell us?
Aliniambia ataniletea mapasta. The following day akakuja na mganga.
Wewe msichana wewe. Unisikize na unisikize kwa makini.
This sounds like one of your feuds with her.
You wish.
She has moved on. Sepia to move on to Andy.
All right, welcome back. So all of us have the coffees on the table and ready. Go. So, Mheshimiwa Nabi, I think...
You mean you have coffee?
Yes, that's coffee, and it has sugar. Now
You are sure you are taking coffee? Let me just taste something.
This is adulterated, original from Western. I don't know where exactly, but yes.
I hope you said a prayer.
Okay, so that is what I have here on the front page of the local dailies. Gentlemen, so inside plan to swiftly replace DP Gachagua. Javas, what do you make of that headline?
Just as the headline itself reads, that there is the hatchet work that is self-evident to make sure that there is a new political order within the politics of UDA, particularly within Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
And this is not coming as a surprise to anyone who is a keen political observer and follower of issues, that this is something that has been happening for quite many months past. In fact, from sometime last year. I know that a house divided generally will never always stand, especially from within. There has been the push and pull, the toing and froing within Kenya Kwanza, especially within UDA, with antagonistic kind of politics. Politics of, marksmanship, politics of one trying to overdo the other. Some have even said that the Constitution is the problem by the manner in which it has tenured the office of the DP, which I'm diametrically opposed to as a view. But I think the manifestation of the politics of the day-to-day puts us at the crossroads. Crossroads, yes, of politics and history in this country, puts us at the crossroads of the interlink or that nexus between constitutional law and the protection mechanisms and the politics of the day. And thirdly, how political intricacies of, like right now, the binary between Kenya Kwanza and ODM, where Mheshimiwa Nabwera belongs, is what has easily enabled the swift and sure execution of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's guillotine. But if we're to ask ourselves very critical questions,
about that?
Of course. You know, as a matter of fact, that to the exclusion of ODM, then the numbers would not have been quite certain in the House for purposes of impeachment. Because if ODM would have marshaled its numbers the other side, then it would be a question of conjecture. Secondly, let's ask ourselves, when we look at it through comparative lenses, say in the US as it is, where a president and deputy are elected on a single ticket during elections, we have never seen this kind of facade playing out in the US and even other democracies. Question is it the constitution that is the problem? I would say no. I think the problem is our political sociology. How we have fashioned and understood our politics, and the politics of self-aggrandizement is what is leading us to this avenue, this boulevard of so much political noise.
Okay, very good. And now we have got possible, Mheshimiwa Nobera, perhaps you want also to chime on that. I don't know whether this is also one of the quote-unquote urgent matters to be discussed tomorrow. I'm also told that you people are proceeding for a recess.
Yes, I'm not sure.
How fast?
Because among the things listed, is not one of them.
Okay.
But it could be covered, answered. I saw something there. Other urgent issues, probably. That's what it means. Yeah. But by and large, my problem with that is this. We have a constitution which we are not willing to live, unfortunately. It reminds me, if that's the case, it reminds me of 2008 when Kibaki was sworn in, almost.
At 7 in the evening.
Yes. If you were to interpret government working hours, Kibaki should never have been a president of the Republic of Kenya at all.
Yeah.
In 2008, because government has official working hours. So this rush is politically clean, but constitutionally unacceptable, if that's what we are going to do.
You can take that again.
Yes, I'm saying the rush, if there is, because I don't know, I haven't seen it, if there is politically clean, but is constitutionally unacceptable. I've told people that anytime you do anything and you want to hide on timelines, there is a problem. Because if you are doing the right thing, don't fear whatever time you want to do it.
Take your time.
Yes, take your time. Give people an opportunity to digest. Once the people have digested, then they say, oh, so this is what we're going to do. Right? The reason why this constitution, we have the 2010 constitution, empowering and ensuring there is separation of powers and empowering the judiciary to be an arbiter, is when such situations happen.
Yeah.
So if you want to defeat it, then it's not rational. It's against the will of the people. Because the will of the people is that if I do something which injures Javan here, Javan must be given an opportunity to readdress it. If I deny him that opportunity of redress because of time lapse, then there's a problem. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, Victor, I agree with Mheshimiwa Nabii on a couple of fundamental perspectives that he has prosecuted. One, the issue of yes timelines. How come, and these questions have arisen, that sometimes other critical issues are not fast-tracked as this one has been fast-tracked.
Yeah.
This one has been given the pride of place. However, I ask myself, what do we want as Kenyans? For this reason, when you look at this constitution here that Mheshimiwa works with, even the politics of the day is a pocketbook issue like the constitution. Now, look, the will of the people in this country starts here. When 65% of Kenyans agreed and gave unto themselves the Constitution of Kenya 2010 via referendum, it was the will of the majority. It's here. Secondly, and I just wish that every politician, and I like Mheshimiwa's politics usually, I follow it keenly, would play by the rules laid out in the Constitution. What would be better? Now, Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity. Yes, some are saying that, for example, the issue of the day, the headline issue of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua facing the guillotine and his eviction party happening tonight, likely. The issue is, are the offenses leveled and charges leveled against the Deputy President impeachable? If, for instance, of the 11 charges, 2 are substantiated, should he stand impeached?
Against 11?
Yes.
Okay.
And for me, the question is this. What distance are we willing to walk to ensure that leadership and integrity is a critical issue in our governance? And that it should not just start and end with Rigathi Gachagua. That this moment should be a moment of introspection for each of us, citizens and those in office. What kind of leaders do we want? We say that we want leaders with integrity. But when it comes to political nominations, we are going for the Mr. Moneybags. One who is willing to buy us, give us a dime.
Fact.
And that's where it starts. So everything here is cyclical.
Yeah.
We are missing the boat by the river because right from election point, we miss it. Before all this came up, I saw Mashujaa asking critical questions when he was in Western. That will the urgency of this impeachment motion bring new roads in his constituency or deal with critical issues to do with infrastructure in his constituency? And of course, the answer is not in the affirmative. But the question is, can we always take every opportunity to say that we want to correct all the wrongs and put right that which has been left behind for far too long? And I don't know how Mashujaa voted on these issues of impeachment.
I'll say.
But the question is this. For me, the issue is not even the ultimate vote. The issue is what informed the vote that Mashujaa made in the National Assembly when he was having that conversation with himself, observing the happenings in the House. Secondly, for every citizen watching me from every corner of this country, whether in Mandera, Kwale, Busia, or even Kasipuru.
Oh, that's my constituency.
When we watch the happenings as presently is on the floor of the Senate, are we watching it because of and taking sides because of political persuasions? Or are we wearing the lenses of leadership and integrity as has been provided for the sieving by the Constitution of Kenya and the laws of the land?
Mashujaa, critical questions there. And perhaps the courts will look at the process. Again, what you're talking about, it is politically clean, but there's a way you put it.
Yes, I say it's politically clean, but constitutionally, it is
okay.
It has
now, that gives a clear case for the DP either. If he opts to go to court, then this should be one of the lines that perhaps somebody would argue even the process of public participation. Was Wanjiku given enough time to take the papers, the questionnaire, and to interact with the papers and do all the public participation? In as far as this is concerned, it was gazetted today, the following morning, all of you are in their respective constituencies across the country. That's another question.
Victor, what is enough time?
That's, I guess, something you said. If it is rushed, then it brings the issue of time. Was Wanjiku given enough time?
I'll place it back on the shoulders of Mashujaa here as a member of the National Assembly.
Let me tell you, Victor. This constitution, Kenyans have to make a decision. I'm insisting, and this is my position all along since I came to this parliament, that the Kenyans have to make a decision whether we want to implement this constitution or we have to go and rethink through. I'm saying this because the drafters of the 2010 constitution had 2 key principles in mind, which are not written anywhere. One, that the implementers of the constitution will have common good. Anytime they're implementing this constitution, it is what applies to common good that should take precedence. That's number one.
That's unwritten law.
The second assumption...
It is written.
Come on.
Okay. No, yes. Article 259 provides for the construing of this constitution.
Number two, the other assumption they have about this constitution was that the purveyors of justice, and please, purveyors of justice are not just the courts. The purveyors of justice are leaders in any aspect, so-called state leadership. The purveyors of justice would be willing to implement it wholesome. Unfortunately, from day one of this 2010 constitution, the implementation of the constitution by different stakeholders has been selective. I can tell you, for example, I want to give you a very good example. The equalization fund, which is provided for here. Can you tell me how it has been implemented in this country? That's number one. Number two, I come back to the public participation issue. The drafters had one thing. They put it here, and they knew very well Parliament was going to enact a law on public participation. Up to today, my brother, we have no law on public participation. What has happened? The courts have been trying to define the parameters. In one court, they will talk about quantity. Right? In another court, they will be talking about quality. That what is a qualitative public participation? The issues of time, the issues of to the public understand the question, you know, all those. Another court was talking about is it 30% of the people? You remember in the case of Wambora, in the case of Kibudha Kibwana, is it 30%? Is it 60%? What would constitute a rational public participation? So that is one key issue. Now, having that kind of situation, the courts also have accepted different perspectives. I've seen cases which have gone to court, and all they need to know is, was there engagement with the people? And who are these people? Right? Engagement of the people.
Javan is banning to say something.
No, I just want to finish my argument. So, as far as that is concerned, there is no fast and rules on what constitutes public participation. In fact, you will be shocked how Parliament went around this. They opened up a portal.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
And send out a questionnaire. You are allowed to do your public engagement on a portal. As much as people went out. And actually, the majority of those things you are seeing being taken into the Senate in cartons were those that came through the portal.
All right. Does it amount to public participation? Now, Mheshimiwa here commenced his argument by laying the ground about the framers of the Constitution. And now the critical question, Victor, is who are the framers of the Constitution of Kenya 2010? Are they the drafters, or do we go back to the Constituent Assembly that brought in all the stakeholders at Bomas? Is it the drafters whom we can end up concluding as the framers of the Constitution, or is it the Constituent Assembly that sat to deliberate on the critical issues and say that this is the framework of governance that we want? Who are the framers of the Constitution?
The Constituent Assembly.
That is a legal-political question that actually will not take one single show to dissect. It is a legal-political issue that can take actually thesis upon thesis, even of PhD. But let's agree that the framers is the Constituent Assembly, because that is the representation of the real people from every sector, the framers of the Constitution. It was only conveyed to the drafters for purposes of chewing out pulp and spitting it into a document at the referendum. But now, they wanted. Of course, later on we had different versions, the Wako draft, the Naivasha, but in the end we got this, and then we went to a referendum. Now, these are the thoughts of the framers of the Constitution, the Constituent Assembly. We gave unto ourselves, 67% of us as Kenyans, a heritage that we are proud of. And Mashujaa says, yeah, and I agree, we have not fully implemented this Constitution. We ought to. But even the National Assembly of Parliament cherry picks what to implement and what to hide. The same way, Chapter 6 says that National Assembly of Parliament, rather, will enact legislation to enable Chapter 6 leadership and integrity. When Parliament enabled, by way of legislation, Leadership and Integrity Act, it was totally watered down. Does not serve the purpose of the framers of the Constitution.
Okay.
But let's come back to the issues at hand. Tying it to what I argued earlier, if Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua is found culpable or one issue is substantiated, is it an issue that Kenyans want to stomach, that we can have a leader who has got this dark cloud hanging upon his head, or her head for whatever matter? Or we say, we want to be sure that as long as you occupy public office as a state officer, then the expectation of the Constitution, legitimate expectation, is that you must be clean. The other question is this: when a state officer is taking an oath of office, and Mheshimiwa even here took an oath of office,
yes.
Does that oath mean something? Should it mean something, as long as you occupy that office? When you say that I will defend and protect this Constitution, should it mean something? You as a state officer, and owing allegiance to the Constitution itself, and of course, like I've said elsewhere, you end up by even lifting your own eyes to the high heavens and say, so help me God. If it's true, then let us make sure that no leader should occupy office if they've got dark spots.
Now, Victor, I want to just
let's welcome Paul Mugambi.
Weigh in something small.
Yes, just welcome Paul Mugambi. He's also joining us on set.
Paul.
Paul Mugambi is an advocate of the High Court. Again, friend of KBC as well. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana.
We were just finding us already chewing the bone. There's enough for you to chew with us as well. we are good to go. We are good to go.
Right. Here.
Yes.
Good to see you guys.
Karibu sana. Yes, let's come.
Yes, Victor. I just wanted to assure my brother on one thing. It's already in the standing orders, and is already set a precedent. You are impeachable, even if it's only one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
If we prove even one, you are impeachable.
Yeah. That's my point, is that looking at the circumstances facing Rigathi Gachagua, only an act of God is likely to save him.
Yeah.
Right now, as we are talking, of course, like I said earlier, his eviction party is going to happen tonight. What is surprising me is not that there is Rigathi Gachagua's eviction party tonight. What is surprising me is that Rigathi Gachagua is surprised by the eviction party.
That's the reverse of the events.
Because he saw it coming, he should have seen it coming.
Yeah.
The useful thing about how Rigathi Gachagua is battling this out, the most useful thing, beyond the politics, is that it's going to enrich our jurisprudence and settle some issues of law. The issue, for example, of our jurisdiction has now been settled by Justice Mrima. That does the High Court have jurisdiction to weigh in and ventilate on issues that are emanating from Parliament regarding the impeachment of a president or deputy president? But as long as it offends the Constitution as a constitutional issue, High Court now has settled that it has got jurisdiction on that matter. The other thing is that post this impeachment, because Rigathi Gachagua knows full well that this impeachment is a concluded issue, he is going to go to the courts, enriching our jurisprudence from that point. The courts, and I appreciate, from BBI decision, from the first 2015 Kiambu Finance Act decision by Justice Odunga, Court of Appeal, the courts have come out clean and clear on issues of the four corners about public participation. Of course, then if it's a question of legislating on public participation, the courts have legislated from the bench. which is of course not their primary mandate. What's now very important is for Parliament to come up and legislate. Having a national statute on public participation would have sealed some of these fundamental questions that have been arising about the worth, extent, and exhaustion of public participation in an exercise such as this.
Well put. Gentlemen, I want us to take a break. And when we come back, we're still going to circle that because since we started this conversation, one thing is constant: Constitution. That's what I've been hearing all through. Constitution. That is our guiding Bible.
As lawyers, of course, we cannot argue outside the Constitution.
All right, let's take a break. I need to continue with this discussion. Stay with us. More coming after this.
This October, all roads lead to Kwale County as we honor our heroes. Join us for a comprehensive coverage of Mashujaa Day live from Kwale Stadium as we mark the milestones made in the affordable housing projects.
Nasema karibuni sana, muje mujienjoy, muone yale yote mazuri ambayo yako ndani ya kaunti ya Kwale.
All these will be live on KBC Channel 1 TV, KBC radio stations and all our socials. Heko kwa Mashujaa wetu.
Nadhani umefika muda wa kurudi kwa wazazi wangu na mwanangu Maya. Hapa haya ni maji ya shingo na nimeshindwa kabisa kuyaogelea.
Mimi naweza chapwa na mwanamke mimi huyo basi.
Hata wewe mtu mzima haujui kuchunga mzigo wako. Shauri yako.
All right, welcome back. So before we continue, how about we go to the coastal city of Mombasa and get to listen to what Wanjiku is saying, because Wanjiku is also an interested party in this case. Let's go to Mombasa.
Kwa majina naitwa Samuel Obatile kutoka bunge la Mombasa. Wakati tulipiga kura 2022 tulipigia watu wawili. Tulipigia Gachagua na tukapigia Ruto akiwa president na mwingine akiwa mdogo wake. Ya kwamba saa hii vita imeanza wao wenyewe. Ikiwa vice president amefanya makosa yote imewekwa, tunataka iwe pale amefika kwa Senate waangalie makosa yote ile amefanya. Ikiwa amefanya makosa atuondokee, mwingine awekwe. Ikiwa hajafanya makosa yote aje. Ikiwa itarudi kwa koti na koti msamee, tukubaliane. Kile tunataka Kenya ni umoja wa Kenya na kuwa hakuna ukabila. Asanteni.
Thank you. Kwa majina anaitwa Raymond. Swala la Rigathi Gachagua kuondolewa, mimi na support kwa sababu hii nchi imekuwa ikipigana na ukabila kwa miaka mingi. Nafikiri tumefikia mahali ambapo at least tulikuwa tunaanza kujivunia kwamba tumetoka katika hiyo hali. Lakini saa hii kama tutakuwa na kiongozi kama huyu ambaye ako na haiba ya kama deputy president na bado anataka kuturegesha nyuma kudrive hali ya ukabila, it's so unfortunate kwa sababu yeye kila wakati mimi nilipokuwa nikimsikiza kama deputy wangu aliniambia kwamba watu wa mlima, na tulimchagua kama deputy ambaye ni wa nchi nzima. Sasa nashangaa hii nchi hii ya Kenya iko na mlima peke yake ama iko na mahali nyingine ambayo si mlimani. because hata yeye akisimama mahali kama Lamu County, Kwale County, unamsikia amesimama Kwale County, lakini ana drive agendas za mlimani. So mimi chenye nilikuwa nashindwa na kuelewa ni kwamba huyu rais alichaguliwa na wale wa Mount Kenya ama alichaguliwa na wananchi wote. Sasa saa hii mambo yamefika ngumu, anakuja kutuambia kwamba Wakenya waulizwe kwa sababu hao ndio walimpigia kura. Badala ya kusema watu wa Mount Kenya waulizwe kwa sababu hao ndio wamekuwa kidrive agendas zao, anasema anatujumuisha kama Wakenya wote. Hapo ndio ananikoroga. So mimi yale makosa ambayo yamewekewa, mimi naona yako very very right. Mimi kama ataenda, mimi sina shida nalo, kwa sababu kama kutakuja mwingine pia atajua kwamba hii nchi ni ya Wakenya wote na sio ya kabila hii wala Wakenya hii wengine. Thank you so much.
Asanteni sana. My name is Benjamin Wafula, bunge la wananchi Mombasa. I'm very happy to be here today. What I'm saying is that mimi siwezi sulubisha Gachagua. Siwezi msulubisha because sijaona makosa yake mimi kama Mkenya. And we said that the Kenya government nominated Rigathi Gachagua, Ruto to cater in one ticket, and we voted for them. Asanteni sana.
Kwa majina naitwa Ali Rujo. Kwanza naambia Wakenya kwamba hili jambo la Rigathi Gachagua, kwanza naambia particular watu wa Central, hili jambo wasilichukulie kiukabila. Hili jambo ni makosa ya Gachagua. Tusilete makosa ya kiongozi fulani tusileke katika ukabila. Manake watu wa Central pia sisi tumeoana nao, tumezaa nao, tumekuwa kitu kimoja. Naona. Kwa hivyo makosa ya Gachagua iwe ni ya Gachagua peke yake, isiingilie kikabila. Sababu mimi nimefurahia sana huyu Gachagua kuondoka kwa sababu sisi 2007 tumetoka katika fujo la mambo ya kiukabila. Naona Gachagua ile kauli yake, tuseme ile statement yake anatoa ni kwamba anataka kurejesha watu kule kule tulikotoka. Maana ukisema kwamba wewe unatetea watu wako na sisi ambao tuna watu tutatetewa na nani? Sisi hatuna viongozi huko mbele tutatetewa na nani? Sasa ndio mimi sasa unanitia mimi chuki nikiona mtu wa Central na mgonga nyundo na mwingine itakuwa ni fujo. Na hiyo hatutaki katika hii Kenya. Kenya ni moja, sote ni kitu kimoja, na kama ni makosa Gachagua abebe msalaba yake. Asalamu alaykum.
Kwa majina ni Cornelius Mkoba, bunge la mwananchi Mombasa. Kwanza mimi sichaona makosa ya Gachagua kulingana mimi, kwa sababu niliona bungeni kulikuwa na sarakasi. Hata vile walipiga zile kura, hawakupiga ile kwanza 1 by 1 up to 11. Waliweka pamoja. Weta na kukatia speech yako. Naona hii ni siasa tu. Hii ni sarakasi tu ya serikali. Kama mmeshindwa, Gachagua tu mna tu bure. Bure tu. Sasa tunaangalia court because we have 3 arms of the government. Tunaongojea nyinyi. Na nyinyi mkifanya hivyo, basi Kenya haina mtu wa kumtetea. Asanteni.
Yes, kwa majina naitwa Joshua. Mimi upande wangu na support kutolewa kwa Gachagua kwa sababu ya maneno yake, amekuwa kwa public kuongea na jinsi pia amekuwa kuconduct mambo yake na jinsi alitoa speech nyuma ya rais akiwa hapa Mombasa. Tunaomba kama Gachagua, mimi ningemuomba hata ingewezekana afuate process zote, angekuwa mzalendo wa Kenya angeresign mwanzo mapema toke sana. Asanteni.
Kwa majina naitwa Morris, mimi ni mkazi na ni mbunge wa hapa Splendid. Kulingana na impeachment ya Gachagua, mimi naona kama hii kitu ilikuwa ingefanyika kitambo, hata kama last year kule haingefika hapa. Na kitu kwanza muhimu sana, nataka kutoa shukrani kwa ule mbunge ambaye ametable hii kitu kwa parliament na akatoa ushahidi. Tunaomba tukue na viongozi wengine kama hao, wabunge kama 100, nafikiri Kenya tutanyoroka. Naona katiba yetu sasa ndio imeanza kufanya kazi, na tunaomba wengine kama hao wasiogope. Kama umeona mtu ameiba mali ya serikali, atafute ushahidi, atable, tuhakikishe tutadili nao vipi kama wananchi wa Kenya. Asante sana.
Mheshimiwa Nabii, let me start with you. What's your reaction? That's from Mombasa, and Wanjiku is speaking his mind.
Yeah, just the way it's coming out, that way. It's the same way it came out in my constituency. But Victor, many of these people have not read the charges. I can tell you, many commentators have not had time to look at what are the charges and what evidence is available. And I want to thank Javan to have brought out this issue so that the public know that we only need one impeachable offense. Okay? You are concerned how I voted. I voted yes to impeach Gachagua, for God's sake. And that is after a lot of soul searching. I had asked a lot of issues. By the way, the time I started asking those questions you saw when I was addressing my constituency, this thing had been in the air for 3 months. You may not know. This thing of impeaching Gachagua has not started today. It has been in the air. Now, at that time, it was becoming an issue. Even people, you have problems of committee meetings, people have gone to caucus. So I said, look, this thing is becoming unnecessary.
So there was some behind the scenes happening in
of course, when something is
for
of
over
this
6
nature.
months, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
It had even started going into rallies.
Actually, the primaries, the commencement of the debate started around July last year.
Exactly. By Ichungwa. And it was affecting many issues. So, for me, I said, guys, can we be able to prioritize? As I said that, when I came back to Parliament the following week, the motion was hit. So I said, okay, this thing has come, let me look at it. And let me tell you, for me, what broke the camel is when the Deputy President addressed a meeting, a press conference in Embu and at his residence. At that time, it was on a Sunday. And he brought it out in such a way that to me, it was irredeemable for him to work with the president. Because he was saying he doesn't even know. He doesn't even get the itinerary. That is a person who has lost trust of his boss. Even whichever way this thing go, I don't want to preempt how it will go.
Okay.
Assuming Gachagua is not impeached, for example.
How does he work?
How does he work with William? How? With the president? The president who nominated him to be his running mate has lost trust. And if you want to prove that the president has lost trust, has he ever commented saying this thing came up? Never. Anyone else would have come to say, look, guys, I'm enjoying my working. All matter of claims have come up. So the relationship is irredeemable. It is like a marriage. The only problem with this one is that the people who are not there when they were consummating are now being asked to help in the separation. Because that's what the Constitution envisages.
That's how the Senate and the National Assembly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For God's sake, even if he survives, the most reasonable thing the Deputy President can do for this country is then after that to resign. Because they will not be working for Kenya, he will be actually a ghost worker. Why? He's supposed to be assigned duties by the president. The president has already allocated duties to Kindiki, to Mudavadi, to all those people, meaning he has lost trust. He himself has admitted that he has not attended, through his lawyers, he has not attended the National Security Council meeting, which is a most important organ. And that's why he went to address the issues of National Security Council in public. For me, from my background, that is a marriage that cannot work. Now, if a marriage cannot work, even if you went to a pastor, a practicing Protestant, specifically of PAG Church, if your wife went to the pastor and told the pastor that this man comes to bed dressed in his suit, the pastor will just tell him this one is not doable. Please just park.
How should he dress?
Yes.
How should he dress while going to bed?
In sleeping gowns.
Let me bring in Wakili Mugambi. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
You've heard that sleeping gown. Okay, so let's come back here. He's talked about something quite fundamental, that the issue of impeachment did not start last week, last month, or even 2 months ago. Perhaps there is so much that Wanjiku doesn't know. Based on what he's also saying, that there is a lot happening behind the scenes that Wanjiku is not aware of.
Exactly.
Which is okay, because government has to work in a certain way. You can imagine if all the secrets and confidential matters are put in the public, we will not have a nation. But how fast did that relationship deteriorate? Because it started all well. Let me give an example of a marriage. You know, the honeymoon stage, and all that. Before you know it, we are here dissolving the marriage and divorce papers are flying across. This is akin to that. How fast?
Using legal jargons.
Yeah.
Under the Marriage Act, there are reasons for divorce, and one of them is if the marriage is irretrievably broken. You cannot mend the relationship, but also an important one, if the marriage is not consummated. And in this case, I think I would go with the consummation part, from where the honorable member left it. I think this marriage was not consummated. The body language, the conversations in corridors of power, and all manner of indications show that that marriage was not consummated. And I don't think the two were happy together. Maybe it was not meant to be. And you can see in barely 1 year in office, there were conversations about removal. Removal from office. First of all, it began from the opposition quarters. I remember Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna saying that he doesn't fit, the deputy president doesn't fit to hold a public office. ODM leader and former Premier Raila Odinga also mentioned that. I mean, in an interview he was very, very, very emphatic about the deputy president being unfit to hold public office, being because of his utterances. And I think as soon as the deputy president, all this is speculative, so I'm just trying to deduce from what I've picked from different quarters. So it's, as soon as he realized that, he retreated to his backyard and saying, you know, the mountain this, mountain that, mountain this, mountain that, and trying for over a year to galvanize that base. And this is what now he's been unable to do. In my view, I don't think it has worked for him. In the end, now he's been consumed by what he started, and I think he found himself in a situation where he was in a situation where he was in a hole, and then he continued digging and digging, and got deeper and deeper.
Come out of it.
Yeah.
But again, gentlemen, red flags. So by the time the president was picking him as his running mate, nobody saw the red flags
Just a minute.
that came out,
Victor.
As soon as it all started.
Victor, I want to use his analogy.
Go ahead.
If I went and borrowed his Mercedes to go and court a girl, I went and showed the girl his house. And then when the D-Day comes, we walk into a grass-thatched house. Do you know what that girl continues asking?
Will you take him coffee on a motorbike?
Yes. And she will keep on saying, if I have an opportunity, I'll get out of this. One of the things that is coming out clearly from where I sit, the two came up together in deceit.
Okay.
Because there was a common enemy, Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. That's point number one. Point number two, which is important for me here, and which is critical, is it appears to me from day one, this was designed to fail.
Okay.
In the sense that there were always checkmates to Gachagua. And I agree with him. One thing that Gachagua did not do is he did not read the signs of the day properly. Remember, there was an attempted vote to get a running mate. He was not the preferred by most of the MPs. Now, at the time, once he became the deputy, he did the opposite. He should have gone to impress these people who had voted against him in the boardroom, the MPs.
They eventually won seats as MPs. Instead, he went to fight them. Okay?
Okay.
Going against the grain of political strategy. Usually, when you have you have lost a part, you go for approval. And how do you go for approval? You embrace. Of course, one thing I want to disagree with the Mugambi is that the political elite, Gachagua lost them. The ordinary person in the mountain, Gachagua got him.
Okay. I had not taken a look at what we have on the two papers. The discussion went straight into it, which is very important. Regard this bruising battle. That's on the front page of the Standard. Okay? Regard this bruising battle. In fact, the entire sitting yesterday, the only time that he uttered a word was when he was answering to the charges. Not guilty. After that, he didn't say a word, and he sat pensively. So when Deputy Rigathi Gachagua appeared before the Senate, he was reeling from a string of losses in the National Assembly and the courts. And his early prayers to Speaker King yesterday suffered the same fate, leaving him to face his accusers in a bare-knuckled war that saw his lawyers rip through Kibwezi MP Mwengi Mutuse's evidence in a surgical cross-examination where the motion mover admitted to several inadequacies. Javas, several inadequacies.
It's true.
From the motion mover.
That does not discount the fact that Rigathi Gachagua has engaged in suicidal politics. You cannot put on your father's trouser and think that you can invite and in fact engage your father's in-laws in the name of your father. What Rigathi Gachagua has done is a sin that in politics cannot be forgiven. And that's why we are seeing the devil on the cross. Regarding the charges that have been leveled against him and the evidence, we saw yesterday, witnessed before our own eyes, how Honorable Mutuse was, in some cases, struggling to defend the charges that he himself brought to the floor of the House. It is because, for a number of reasons, Honorable Mutuse, and of course we know as lawyers, that when it comes to the craft of cross-examination, it limits Mutuse and how he can explain some things.
Yeah.
And that's a tactic in cross-examination. And that's why even counsel for Rigathi Gachagua, my good friend Elisha Ongoya, came out all guns blazing.
To capitalize on that.
But of course, the other side is also going to play its tricks.
Yeah.
And with that,
they put him on his defense.
You will see even how Rigathi Gachagua will be desirous to swallow his own tongue because of the same tactics and approach in cross-examination. But let's face it, I can nearly bet my grandfather's jacket, seated here in this chair, that about 6 or 7 charges are likely to be flawed or shredded. Tonight, Senate is likely to find that about 3 or 4 of the charges can be substantiated. And that is what will send Rigathi Gachagua home. The 8 charges or the 7 charges that are going to be shredded will not be sufficient to save his skin, which is already very thin and pale. The other thing is that in the issues to do with the economic crimes, as charge number 7 reads, and the issue of the utility of his office to try and tilt an award of a contractor, if possible in his favor, or a favor to a company associated with his children by proxy. For me, the issue is not that the contract was not awarded.
Yes.
The issue is when a deputy president picks his phone to make a call, how should we look at it in terms of using public office to influence?
Chapter 6.
What should it amount to? The issue is, because in other cases, suppose the contract had been awarded, would he have benefited?
Hold on to that question. Can we answer this? go to Kisumu?
Well, of course, please, let us fly there by way of Concord.
All right. Let's cross over to Kisumu and listen to...
Not to Kasipul.
My people in Kasipul are still waiting to hear what's going to happen tonight. Wycliffe Okech joining us from the lakeside city of Kisumu. Wycliffe, it's an interesting time to live in the country right now. I have got brilliant brains in studio. Kisumu city is relatively calm from what I can see. What else can you tell us? Good morning, Wycliffe.
Morning to you, Victor Olo from Nairobi. I equally have brilliant minds from this side of the country. Like you said, Kisumu is cool and calm. Like you say, people going about their businesses just usually. But then again, at the end of the day, we know there is big event going on at the Senate from actually from 9, that is 25 minutes from now. The Senate will be resuming its sittings to proceed with the scrutiny, or rather the impeachment proceeding, or rather motion that is before them regarding the special motion regarding the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The proceedings, we know, have been underway at the Senate since yesterday. We've had legal arguments, we've had evidential submissions from both from the National Assembly and also the other side of the Deputy President. But again, we know Kenyans have a lot to say about this entire process. And joining me live, from the lakeside now, I have two gentlemen. One, Isaac Oburu, from the civil society, a local civil society organization, and of course an advocate of the High Court, that is Clifford Obiero. Starting with you, Bwana Oburu, look into the camera and share with Kenyans this morning. I'm quite sure you've been following the proceedings at the Senate since yesterday, and this being the final day when the senators will be taking the vote. Do you believe that the evidential presentations or the submissions at the Senate and also the argument from both sides subject the Deputy President to a fair trial? Look into the camera.
Yes, I want to say that we have actually been treated to a different picture from what we saw during the parliamentary proceedings on the same matter. And watching through the proceedings yesterday, I want to say that a lot of new content, a lot of new information has been put on table. And at least that even puts the common mwananchi to be able to be a judge of the process. Unlike the parliamentary proceeding, even the processes were fast track and did not give mwananchi a lot of the civic education that is now being employed, especially in order to be able to understand what are the violations that the Deputy President did really make, and leaving alone the politics, because we know he's a politician. We also know some of the utterances, even me personally, I was against. And at times I used to ask myself, are we really in Kenya, or this is a fairly regional imbalance being created by the office of the presidency, because the Deputy President sits in the same position as the President of the Republic of Kenya. So mine is to watch and see what will be transpiring again today, because I understand he will be he is a key witness today, moving in to defend himself. And I'll be interested in the cross-examination now for him to now either be able to disown his own words, be able to interpret them in a manner for me to also make another a new opinion about him, considering his political utterance that has led to this process. Yes.
This process started in the National Assembly. We had public participation at the constituency level, and now it is at the Senate. At the end of the day, the senators will take vote. From where you sit as a resident of the lakeside, do you believe the senators will be guided by the submissions they have been treated to at the Senate, or political affiliations will take center stage here?
Yeah, one truth in Kenya that we are politically inclined. We are also politically diffused, because now we know we are talking about a broad-based government, and that brings in a bit of some political inclination. And looking at how Parliament even voted, I may fail to understand that again Senate might vote the same way. But looking at the entire process, how it has been carried, there's a lot of value in the process. There's a lot of fairness in the process. Even if all the 11 counts might not hold and just one count found to actually hold weight in the current proceeding, but we shall be able to appreciate that the Deputy President was given a fair process. It is indeed also political, because we also want to get some political medicine, political solution to what is affecting the country. Because even moving forward, if he survives, then my question will be, then what will be his role compared to now we are being taken through the understanding of the roles of the Deputy President and also as the unity of purpose in the government. So I'm failing to actually be able to project what will be the working relationship moving forward. Yes.
Actually, you've just touched on the question I wanted to ask you next. You've touched on fairness, and based on fairness, there are only two outcomes. The DP will survive, or he will be ousted through impeachment, yes. But then we've had public participation, Kenyans have spoken, but from where you sit or from your position, what characteristics of a leader do you expect from the hold of that particular office? And still on the same breath, would you say that the DP is guilty of the charges that are being leveled against him?
From my public or my personal opinion, one, looking at how they came into government and what proceeded thereon, you'll be able to see the Deputy President kept on reaffirming to us as, especially people who come from this region, we easily felt we are not in the government. Just because he kept on reaffirming that this is a shareholding government. It depends on what contribution you brought on board. But again, he was missing the understanding that if the President Ruto was not there, maybe based on other natural factors, then he will actually become the president. Then my question will be, will the country still feel unified under his presidency, based on what the president had already said, proclaiming his position publicly, that if you are not, if you did not bring in value to the process or to this current system in terms of voting, then you are not counted in. So I would also want to get what is his presentation on that line before Senate. And I want to believe that he has also learned a lesson. He has also learned a lesson that once you're given a public position, a public leadership opportunity like what he had, he is no longer representing any region going over the tenets of the Constitution. Therefore, even people from this region, when I tell you don't touch the lake, we will actually mean that you not like a fisherman, or like when you tell me don't touch the mountain, I'm not going to do mountain climbing and tell me don't touch the mountain. But realistically, when you look at that, it's able to ground a very clear division in the country now that we are ethnically polarized as a country, and even looking at the experiences we had in 2007. And being a member of the civil society, we actually played a key role in being able to bring peace across among the various ethnic groups of young people all over Kenya. And we want an institution that is also going to provide that cohesion as a country, as a key value of what makes us feel free, feel proud to be Kenyans.
And lastly for you, given the submissions you've been following the Senate since yesterday, at the end of the day, would you say what will be so fair for the DP? Will the senator, if the senators vote in his favor or against him, what will be so fair for him?
What will be fair for the deputy is that one, he should be able to accept the process and its outcome, looking at the 11 counts that he is actually facing, and whichever count will carry the day. He must be able to say that actually he has now found a fair process in Senate compared to the National Assembly. And I think even Kenyans who might have thought this process was a diversion will also appreciate the level of civic engagement that we have been taken through And whatever the outcome, we will be able to say, yes, there was value in reasoning. Yes, there was value in according the Deputy President fair hearing. And also there is value that Kenya is one and the institutions need to be fair to every Kenyan.
Thank you so much, Isaac Obiero. Clifford, I would now like to engage you here. Very briefly, look into the camera. You are a legal practitioner. If you just look into the camera and talk to Kenyans, you've been following this, I'm quite sure. And would you say that this entire process, right from the National Assembly and now at the Senate, and this process is supposed to end today when the Senate does actually take the vote, has it been fair enough?
Okay, we cannot say that it's fair at the Senate if it was not fair in Parliament, in the National Assembly. We saw what happened in the National Assembly, and actually what's going on in the Senate is just trying to sanitize that went wrong in the National Assembly. Because if you ask me, there were everything wrong with everything that took place in the National Assembly, the issues that they were bringing around, the questions they were asking, that, and even the manner they were asking them will demonstrate that they were judges who had already been compromised. You can ask questions whereby even the person who is being tried already know the outcome, and you will see the member of National Assembly actually trying to joke around with the process. Look at even the public participation. That was a vote of no confidence to members of Parliament, because it's not provided for in the law, but the judge sitting somewhere said that it's important that public participation takes place because one, at that particular stage there is no role of the public. The members of Parliament are supposed to be representing the public because they were elected to do so. That is some of the delegated roles that they were supposed to do. When they were now doing public participation, then it would mean that their capacity to engage the people on the ground was already defiled and questioned. But now that when they passed it with that majority, then it showed you that the rumors that were going by could be true, because that majority was also not, when you are in a meeting where everyone leaves and say everything is right without somebody questioning or trying to panel beat something, then either it is a predetermined meeting or everybody sitting there is a fool. I'm sorry to use that. But not in the context of Parliament, in the context of the society. But now we are in the Senate, and we were able to follow what was taking place there, and I can tell you that is why they deserve to be called the upper house. Seated from where I was, trying to eliminate myself from the Gachagua in the field, trying to give Gachagua a fair hearing as I would give to my two children who disagreed, then I was seeing questions that again we need to ask and ought to have even been asked in the National Assembly. You could see people who actually brought some evidence here, stammer, with some things that are not even making sense. My expectation is that by the time they are going to vote, then they are supposed to do what it ought to be, not what it is, as we know as Kenyans. What is it that it ought to be? What it ought to be is that they were sitting there in the capacity of judges as a tribunal, quasi-tribunal, so to speak. And we are expecting the submissions that were being made yesterday to be persuasive to how they are going to vote today. We expect people who could have been having an idea will have changed because of probably how tough questions were not answered and how people stammered and kind of whatever. I'm not saying so because I am probably pro Gachagua politics. I'm one of the people who did not agree with the manner in which he carelessly spewed comments and handled things administratively around. But when it comes to the court of law, we expect to the court of law or tribunal, you expect to subject someone to something that you would have been happy if you are subjected to. We remove the Gachagua out of him. Let us look at him as a Kenyan citizen who has laws that are supposed to regulate his sittings. And then we give him a fair hearing, regardless of the disagreements that we may have and the perception that we may hold.
And again, at the end of the day, the senators will take the vote later in the evening today. And 45 senators at least 45 are required to vote to determine the fate of the deputy president. In your opinion, where does this place the country? Should the DP get impeached or not?
The reality of the matter is that the impeachment of the president, similar to the impeachment of the deputy president, is determined in finality in the Senate. And trust me, the decision that is made there cannot even be reviewed in the court of law. You know that. And in such a circumstance, the decision is going to be made by the senators that we have there. and they must meet the fraction that is required by the statute. So what we expect them to do today, even as we will be watching, we expect them to set a precedent, knowing very well that Gachagua is on it today, but this is not the last time we are having a deputy president. Another deputy president could be voting against Gachagua today. And you set a threshold that you will be happy if one day the same is subjected to you. So let us not do it because it is Gachagua. Let us do it knowing very well that this thing will be cited and people will be using it as president going forward. So that in subsequent sitting, if Orengo becomes the deputy president, he has said something that he will be happy if he is subjected to the same scale. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Victor, that is Wakili talking to us about the entire process of the special motion regarding the impeachment of the deputy president. Earlier on, you heard from another gentleman from the Lakeside City, that is Isaac Oburu, also giving his opinion. All they are pointing to to one direction by the fact that they need, in their opinion, the entire process has been fair. The Senate, yes, and on the same part, they are expecting a sober judgment at the end of the day. You know, the senators will be taking the vote later in the evening after the cross-examination, the submissions, the legal arguments from both sides. Now the senators will be taking their vote on this particular special impeachment, and they here speaking of saying that they expect sobriety to take precedence even as the senators will be taking the vote later in the evening. But something they've been quick to notice is the fairness and sobriety that has manifested at the Senate in comparison with the National Assembly. And on that bit, they are confident and adamant that the same fairness that has been exhibited there will again be exhibited when the senators will be taking the vote regarding the special impeachment of the deputy president. Well, this is a continuous process. We are not leaving it here. We'll continue to engage more of the residents of Kisumu to understand what they have to say about this entire process. But for now, Victor, I know you said you have brilliant minds in the studio, and now I'm handing it back to you to continue the live discussion right in studio. Back to you, Victor.
All right. Okay, that is Weekly for Catch coming to us all the way from Kisumu County. And of course, that is those are some of the sentiments from the voters, residents of Kisumu, giving their opinion in as far as this case is concerned. All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, I'll circle back and come to the tail end. Remember, at 9 a.m., we'll cross over to the Senate for the final day of this hearing. Stay with us.
Mtazamaji, tumekuandalia taarifa zinazogonga vichwa vya vyombo vya habari kutoka hapa jijini Nairobi na pia mashinani.
Wanahabari zaidi ya ubora wao wako ange kukuletea habari pindi zinapochipuka kutoka pembe zote za Kenya.
Kwenye kipindi cha Tamrini, tunakuletea mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja kufafanua na kuangazia masuala yanayokuhusu wewe mtazamaji.
Kumbuka, taarifa yenye thamani daima hupokewa kwa amani.
Hivyo basi usikose kuungana nasi kila siku ya wiki.
Tukupakulie na tukutaarifu taarifa yenye mnato kwenye runinga unayoienzi. Kwenye kurunzi mashinani,
sisi DC.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com.
A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself.
And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers.
Stay well and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Very good. Welcome back. So now, we've heard from Kisumu, we've heard from Mombasa, and now let's come back and just make sense of now what's happening today. We have a fully packed day today, and of course we expect the Deputy President to take the stand. I'm so sure it's going to be one of those days that if it goes either way, then he shall have expressed himself to members of the Senate and of course the Kenya in general. So let me come back to you, Javas, because before we took a break, it was on you. What do you have to make on, again, let's come back to yesterday, what happened in the Senate. Give us a rundown on your account, what you saw, the demeanor in the House, the way the Senate carried itself from the beginning until the House was adjourned until now.
The demeanor will not be useful in terms of the outcome of this process, because we know that the process currently being undertaken by the Senate is quasi-judicial. And the evidence being adduced and corroborated, because, of course, as a matter of fact, we know that it's a postulate, critical postulate of evidence law, that evidence must be corroborated. Now, the issue here is that the threshold of the evidentiary value of all that will be adduced in the Senate today does not have to be beyond reasonable doubt. We know that for a fact. What is essential is that can any reasonable person believe that the allegations of the charges facing Rigathi Gachagua, one, can be substantiated, and any reasonable person, and here reasonable persons are the senators, because they are the ones who are going to vote. Do they believe that it makes sense and that the charges or certain charges have been substantiated on a balance of probability that actually he is culpable? Because these are not criminal proceedings. So have they been substantiated, any of them? Some people have been moved tremendously, thinking that, and some have been even oscillating between positions of support, members of the public for that matter, because of the characterization and how dramatized the cross-examination was taking place yesterday. Let us go back down memory lane when President Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, and now President William Ruto, former civil servant extraordinaire Francis Mudhaura and others were facing charges at the ICC. And on the first day of evidence being presented and the cross-examination, everybody was saying that the case has collapsed. But you see, that is the folly of layman lenses. But if you look at it from the legal perspective and the political consequence of this process as it's going on, remember that it is the primary role of parliamentarians, now that National Assembly is functioning as official, Senate, to weigh in on the evidence, the charges, and take a vote on each of the charges. It will not be omnibus the way it was in the National Assembly. And so, a number of factors are going to be critical. One, common sense approach. Second, the very heavy heart of politics that is going to be won, or that's being won by the politicians in that house. Third, the imperative of the political matrimony between Kenya Kwanza and ODM. It is critical, and it will inform part of the outcome as a mechanism of voting. You saw how some of the senators from allied to Kalonzo Musyoka were asking interesting questions. It is because evidently Kalonzo Musyoka has voiced that he is diametrically opposed to the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua for political reasons. Kalonzo Musyoka himself, he is always like that guest who is always very late for every party. Because even as all this is happening, he imagines that if Rigathi Gachagua falls, the mountain is going to fall over backwards in support of himself. And yet, he seems even oblivious of the strategic issues and approaches and how even to station himself in the circumstances.
Yeah.
And even as this thing is happening, I can assure you, and I have nothing against Kalonzo Musyoka, he is going to be one of the greatest losers in recorded history from these things that are happening. The new DP, and I can assure you, Victor, in the next 6 or 7 months, Rigathi Gachagua is going to be a forgotten person in the political currency of this country, at least from the forefront. And of course, we know that the DCI and EACC are going to swing into action. If at all they have got reason to believe that some of the charges need to be actually be investigated and charges pressed. So if at all there is anything that I have for Rigathi Gachagua, it is a truckload of mercy, because difficult days are ahead of him in the courts, politically, and this also depends on the character and the manner of the person that is going to be picked as deputy president. How acceptable nationally this person is, how acceptable this person is going to be in the eyes of Central Kenya. The upshot is that Rigathi Gachagua is going to be impeached tonight because of the weighty issues of part of the charges and because of the nature of the politics at play today.
Let me ask you, Wakili, I'll come back to Mheshimiwa. What would change the political landscape? Or would it change the happenings that we are seeing right now if he resigned after taking the stand? Perhaps he'll be given an hour or two to explain himself, and then later on in the afternoon, before they take a vote, he resigns.
Doesn't
How
matter
would that
right now.
make any difference?
The Senate of the Republic of Kenya, and exercising its roles under Article 96 of the Constitution, is already seized of the matter, and that cannot be undone. So that has to go to the logical conclusion. And as at now, the Deputy President, in an opportunity yesterday, earlier, before the Senate started debating the impeachment charges, and that's about it. Right now, the die is cast. That process has to go to the logical conclusion.
Even if he resigns?
Even if he resigns. The impeachment has to either be upheld or, they can drop the impeachment. They can vote against the impeachment, the Senate. But you cannot withdraw the matter from the Senate as at now. What criteria will you use? What part of standing orders are you going to apply? It's not possible. So whether he resigns or not right now, my humble submission is that his goose is cooked. This process has got the logical conclusion. His advisors might have misled him, or he might have misled himself, because the biggest part of his undoing is himself. When you're in a hole, you don't continue digging. And I think the Deputy President knew from the onset the implications, because I heard him mentioning in the National Assembly the implications of his ouster through impeachment. Towards the tail end, when he was trying to beseech the National Assembly not to vote against him, and the member is here, he was present in the House, he told us voted yes for the impeachment. So I think for now, he doesn't have too many options. Whether it's doomed ab initio, like from the word go, with the matter being considered by the Senate is out of his hands. And I can say this, the next conversation is about replacement. The next conversation is not about whether it will be impeached or not. The next conversation, the next national discourse in the ensuing hours, not even days, in the ensuing hours, will be about who's the next Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And I posit that in this show that we could have a new Deputy President by Mashujaa Day.
By?
Mashujaa Day.
By Mashujaa Day?
Yes.
Okay, that will be on Sunday.
Yes.
That explains how fast what's on the front page of the Star newspaper actually put it here. Inside plan to swiftly replace Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. That is on the front page. Of course, that will also have to wait and see how it's going to happen. But then now, how is it going to change the political landscape, Mheshimiwa? Even how parliamentarians should be transacting the House and the business in the House there. You've done your part. So moving forward.
Victor,
I'm going to have a very, very different opinion from my two colleagues here. I've been in this country for quite long, and I started participating in politics when I was a student. I've grown in ODM as a youth wing before I went to the corporate world. Last week, I spent a lot of time in my constituency. It's in Western Kenya. But what I got from the public, and which I continue getting even in Nairobi here, is very strange. And that is the mind of the voter. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And you may be shocked. We may face another Sierra Leone in this country. They barred a person to run for presidency. He installed a prime minister, a young boy. The prime minister has brought him back as, the president has brought him back as the prime minister running the government. I've had this view, and I told my colleagues, we have had debate even at our own caucus level, that if we are not careful, we could create a monster in one Gachagua. Today, you have listened to people here, and I could pick where they're coming from, even those from Mombasa. From the accent, I could pick where they're coming from. If it is not well managed, with the rebellion, the public rebellion against government functioning, two things will happen. And these things, if the government continues to underperform the way it is underperforming, don't wish away Gachagua. Right. Whichever way, whether he will just be a citizen, don't wish him away.
Gentlemen, the time is here, and I'm told that Senate is ready. What should I expect, Javas? But we are not yet out. What should I expect?
I do anticipate a very harrowing ordeal on the floor of the Senate today, being the D-Day. I do expect that he will be pushed to the corner by way of interesting questions, re-examination that is going to take place on the floor of the Senate today. I also do expect very riveting responses from Rigathi Gachagua's counsel, trying to protect him, just the way Mother Chicken does to the
we are told that the subject, the candidate, the deputy president, is already in the Senate. Gentlemen, I have just to cut it short, but stay with me. And then we'll cross over there and see what's happening, because already it's going to be a very busy day, and by close of business, we'll see what's going to happen in this country. Can we just cross over to the Senate and take a look?
Good morning to you and welcome.